Tiga.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Welcome to our online class for today. Today we will continue on topic 11 and 12, which is the last two types of market structure that we will discuss in this course. We will be talking about monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Before we proceed with the discussion, let us look at some of the main topics that we will cover. Okay, first we will look at some of the basic characteristics of monopolistic competition and also what will happen to the profits of monopolistically competitive firms in the long run. And then we will look at characteristics of monopoly. And in the context of oligopoly, we will have a greater discussion on the issue of game theory and mutual interdependence, which is an important characteristic of the oligopoly market. Okay, there will be three types of theories that we will discuss to explain how equilibrium can be achieved in an oligopoly market. So you have the king demand model, collusive model, as well as the price leadership model. And finally, we will look at one of the important feature for both oligopoly and monopolistic competition, which is the component of advertisement. Okay, let's look at the first market model that we will discuss today, monopolistic competition. Close to pure competition. Still remember the characteristics of pure competition: large number of sellers, all these sellers are selling standardized product, there's no barrier of firms to enter or even exit the industry, yeah? And there's no point for these sellers to go into a non-price competition, yeah? There's no there's no barrier for firms to enter and exit in the industry. Yeah? So those are some of the basic features of pure competition. For monopolistic competition, they are still having quite a large number of sellers, but the most important difference between monopolistic competition and pure competition is that monopolistically competitive firm sells differentiated products. Yeah? Differentiated products. The fact that they are selling differentiated product enable them to have some degree of monopoly power. Yeah? I'm not saying monopolistically competitive firms are pure monopolies. Yeah? Pure monopoly and monopolistic competition, they are two different markets. Yeah? So monopolistic competition, despite having significant level of competition in the market, they still have some degree of monopoly power. Monopoly power here refers to the ability of the firm or the seller to determine price. Yeah? Okay. So what are some of the examples of this product differentiation? It can be in the form of product attributes, the service that they are providing, the additional service that they are providing, the location that they operate their business from, yeah, because some customers prefer to go to a certain type of seller because of their strategic location or ample parking space or convenient environment. Yeah? And also branding and packaging. Yeah? So brand is something that is used quite commonly among sellers in order to create differentiation in their product and also to create brand loyalty among their customers. Right? In the context of monopolistic competition, we assume that all these sellers, because there are still large number of sellers, they are all making decisions independent of each other. Yeah? And they have small market share. Yeah? Small market share. When they have small market share, not a single firm has the dominating effect on the market. Yeah? So everybody produce and sell differentiated products. Each of the seller has small market share. They act independently of each other. Okay, so these are additional features. They are selling differentiated products, and therefore non-price competition such as advertisement is very important, yeah, in order to highlight the special features of their product and also the brand and design of their product. Okay, which industries are considered to be monopolistic competition? Majority of the industries in the market are considered to be monopolistic competition. Yeah? If you go to restaurants, yeah, different restaurants provide different menus. Yeah? Even the same dish will have different taste, different way of cooking, different way how to serve, and different prices. And they are being served by different people at different location with different ambient in the restaurants and so on. Yeah? So that is one example of monopolistic competition. When you go to buy your shoes or handbags, there are a lot of small sellers everywhere selling different design, different quality, different brands, and also different pricing. Yeah? In other words, most of the markets in the economy can be considered as monopolistic competition. And in order for monopolistic competition, in order for us to identify whether a market or an industry is a monopolistic competition or not, we can use the concentration ratio. Yeah? The concentration ratio is the threshold in terms of the control of the market structure that differentiate between monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Okay, so far what we have discussed pure competition, the highest level of competition among the four market structures. And then we have pure monopoly. There is no competition at all. Yeah? So the examples for pure competition is not that many. The examples for pure monopoly is not that many as well. Yeah? So most sellers are operating either in monopolistic competition or oligopoly. These two. So in order to differentiate whether the market is monopolistic competition or oligopoly, we can use the concentration ratio. Yeah? Concentration ratio refers to the market share controlled by the top four largest company or largest seller in the industry. Okay, so since monopolistic competition represent large number of sellers and each of them only control a small market share, you would expect that the largest four sellers in monopolistic competition will not have a total market share above 40%. Yeah? So as a result, the market is not dominated by any of the sellers. Yeah? There's no large sellers in the market for this product. Okay. Now, given that there is high level of competition in the market, the firm's demand curve is highly elastic. Not as perfectly elastic under pure competition. Yeah? If you still remember, under pure competition, this is pure competition, quantity, price, pure competition. The demand curve facing the firm is perfectly elastic. This is the demand curve. Yeah? And then the price here is taken from the equilibrium price in the market. And remember, when we discuss about pure competition, we will always have two diagrams. Yeah? The first diagram is representing the industry or the market, where you have the market demand curve and the market supply curve, which determines the market equilibrium price, and the seller under pure competition will take that market price as their selling price. So this is PC, price under pure competition. Under monopolistic competition, however, okay, monopolistic competition, we have discussed earlier that the sellers, even though there are many sellers, but they are selling differentiated products. Yeah, differentiated products. The fact that they are selling differentiated products enable them to have some degree of ability to determine the price. Yeah. However, that ability to determine the price, increase the price as compared to others, is not that strong. Yeah. If let's say they increase it too much, perhaps the customers will run away and go to their competitors, because the seller have so many competitors in the market. The fact that they have a lot of competitors in the market makes its ability to determine the price relatively lower. However, they can increase that ability to determine the price if they have brand loyalty, if their product is recognized in the market as having good quality. Yeah? So reputation or brand loyalty will enable a particular seller under monopolistic competition to increase the price and have more inelastic demand for their products. So we can have it like this. Yeah? Okay, highly elastic. Yeah? The more the customers loyal to the firm, the more the product is differentiated, the more the firm has good reputation in the market, the steeper the demand curve will be. Yeah? The steeper. But if the product differentiation is very minimal, yeah, the brand is not well recognized, then the demand curve becomes more elastic, flatter. Yeah? Right? So the flatter the demand curve, the more elastic the product is among the customers. Okay? Okay, we will look at how the firm determine their profit maximization or loss minimization level of output in the short run. What will happen to that in the long run? Because we know that firms under monopolistic competition can enter a particular industry or exit the industry without much barriers. Yeah? And we will look at what will happen to the long run equilibrium condition under monopolistic competition. And as we have done with pure monopoly, we will always compare other market structure with pure competition. Yeah? When we discuss pure monopoly, we compare the equilibrium under pure monopoly with pure competition. The same we will do it here. The equilibrium under monopolistic competition we will compare with pure competition. Okay. Okay. Still remember the steps to identify profit maximization level of output. Yeah. The first step, identify where MR equal MC. Yeah. Identify where MR equal MC. Trace it down to the y-axis for the optimal quantity. Yeah. So here Q1. From Q1, we trace it up to the demand curve, and then locate the price on the y-axis P1. So this will be the price and output combination that the monopolistically competitive firm should produce and charge in the market. Okay. If you can relate to my earlier point here, yeah, if you can relate to my earlier point here, the ability of the firm to determine price depends on the elasticity of demand, right? If the demand curve here becomes small, it becomes steeper. Yeah, steeper. Yeah? Just imagine the demand curve here becomes steeper. Then what will happen? At Q1, when you trace it up to the demand curve, with a steeper demand curve, you will have a higher price that will be charged to the customers. Yeah. So the higher the greater the elasticity of demand, the greater will be the ability of the seller to increase the price to the customers without having to lose a lot of customers. Yeah. Okay. Step number 2, identify whether the firm is making profits or not. So from Q1, yeah, the output where MR equal MC, you trace it up, right, and find the average total cost. Yeah. In this example, price yeah, P1 at Q1, P1 is above ATC1, and therefore this firm is currently making an economic profit as shown by the diagram here. Okay. The firm may also be making economic losses. Okay, alright. So this is the diagram showing a potential economic loss by the seller. Yeah? So again, step 1, identify where MR equal MC, locate the output Q2. From Q2, trace it up to the demand curve and locate the price on the y-axis P2. Yeah? So the firm, in order to maximize profit or minimize loss, should produce at Q2 and P2. However, when we trace, second step, yeah, trace from Q2 upward, we will find that average total cost is above P2 at Q2 here. Yeah? And as a result, the firm here is making losses. Yeah? The firm here is making losses. Now, remember that one of the important feature of monopolistic competition is free entry and exit. Yeah? Similar to what we have under pure competition. What happens if in the short run all firms, yeah, all firms in the monopolistically competitive industry or market is making profit like this? Yeah? Let's say we are giving an example here. Let's say we have let's say 50 restaurants, yeah, 50 Tom Yum restaurants in Gombak area, 50, and let's say we have 10,000, yeah, let's say 10,000 customers. Let's say we have 10,000 customers, and then we have 50 restaurants. Okay, so every day there will be 10,000 customers in the Gombak area wanting to go and dine out in these restaurants. Yeah. So on average, we have how many? 10,000 divided by 50. We have for each restaurant, yeah, 200 customers. Okay, 200 customers. So as a result, we have all these all these 50 restaurants. Yeah? This is the diagram showing one of the seller. Yeah, one of the seller. We have 50 sellers. Yeah, we have 50 restaurant owners in Gombak. We have 10,000 customers. Each restaurant is basically on average serving 200 customers per day. Yeah, per day. Now, and as a result, all these 50 restaurants, as shown by this is a representative seller, one of the 50 restaurant owners. Yeah, they are making economic profit like this. Now, given that there is free entry, yeah, and the firms here are making profit, it will attract other firms to enter the industry. Yeah? Other firms will also be attracted to open restaurants and make profit in this market. Suppose that let's say 10 more restaurants were open. Yeah? So now not 50 but we have 60. Yeah? 60 restaurants. So 10,000 divided by 60 restaurants. On average, each of the restaurant will have lesser number of customers. In other words, because of the entry of new restaurant, some of the current customer of these restaurants, these 50 restaurants, will go to these new restaurants. So what happened? All of these restaurants will have lesser number of customers. So demand curve here will shift to the left. Yeah. So the demand for the firm will shift to the left because they have lesser number of customers, yeah, due to the entry of new sellers, yeah, opening new restaurants in the market. So when the demand facing the firm here is shifting to the left, you will see that the marginal revenue will follow. So when demand curve shift to the left, marginal revenue will shift to the left as well. So MR equal MC will be at a lower output than Q1. Okay, and then because the demand curve has shifted to the left, the price will also be lower than P1. In other words, the entry of new restaurants into the industry will eliminate the profits of the firms. Yeah. So all the firms here, yeah, the old ones 50 restaurants and the new ones 10 restaurants, yeah, will just be earning a normal profit in the long run. Okay. Now let us look what happens if firms are making economic losses. Okay. Again, we are using the same example there. We have currently 10,000 customers dining out every day and going to 50 restaurants. Yeah. Now suppose that in this condition, the firms, all the 50 restaurants are currently making losses as shown by this diagram. What happened is, in the long run, some of these restaurants will close down because they cannot sustain continuous losses. Let's say now 10 restaurants exit the industry. Okay, 10 restaurants exit the industry. Before this, yeah, you have 50 restaurants and each of them on average serving 200 customers. But now if 10 of the restaurants left the industry, you will only have 40 restaurants in the industry, yeah? And therefore each of the restaurants will have more customers, yeah? So demand for each of the remaining firm, now we only have 40 restaurants in the Gombak area. The demand for each of the restaurants will increase, yeah? So the demand curve here will shift to the right, yeah? Demand for the firm will shift to the right. We know that when demand shift to the right, the marginal revenue will also follow, right? Shift to the right as well. MR equal MC will be at a higher quantity than Q2. Yeah, it will be higher. And then when you trace it up to the new demand curve, which is already shifting to the right, then the price will go up above P2. Yeah? So when the price goes up, it will eliminate the losses that the firms are currently facing. So in the long run, yeah, all firms will end up only having normal profit. Okay, only enjoying normal profit, as shown by Q3 and P3. This is the long run equilibrium under monopolistic competition. Yeah? Long run equilibrium under monopolistic competition. Whenever firms are making economic profits, it will attract new firms to enter the industry. As new firms enter the industry, the demand facing each of the individual firm will decline, leading to lower price, and the decline in the price will eliminate the profits that they have obtained, and as a result they will only able to earn a normal profit like this. Similarly, if firms are making losses, then some of the firms will have to close down and exit the industry. When the firms exit the industry, the demand for the remaining firms, the ones which are still in business, will increase, and that will increase their output and increase the price, and that will eliminate the losses. Yeah? In the long run, all firms will just be breaking even or only earn normal profit at P3 and Q3 here. Okay, now what would be the impact in terms of allocative and productive efficiency? Okay, let's compare this with pure competition. Okay, remember that under pure competition, price equals minimum ATC equals MC. Yeah? So this is the long run equilibrium condition under pure competition. Yeah, I repeat, price equals minimum ATC equals MC. This is the long run equilibrium condition under pure competition. Yeah? And we can show it here by using P4. Yeah? P4 and Q4. Yeah? Q4 is basically the output level at the minimum point of ATC. Minimum ATC. And P4 is the price that will be charged under pure competition. Yeah? So P4 equals minimum ATC equals MC at Q4. Okay. Now, under monopolistic competition, however, the price is not as low as P4. The price is at P3. Yeah? So when we compare between monopolistic competition and pure competition, even though under monopolistic competition, they still earn normal profit. Yeah? They still earn normal profits. The same with pure competition. Pure competition, because free entry and exit, all firms under pure competition only enjoy a normal profit. Similarly, under monopolistic competition, because of free entry and exit, all firms under monopolistic competition will only enjoy normal profit. In other words, price equals ATC. But the important difference here is, under monopolistic competition, P3 equals ATC, but not minimum ATC. Yeah? So minimum ATC is at P4 under pure competition. Under monopolistic competition, it's at P3. But even though it is equal to ATC, it is not equal to minimum ATC. So this is some degree of productive inefficiency that happens under monopolistic competition. Secondly, output is also smaller, right? Output is also smaller because the long run equilibrium condition is at P3 and Q3, whereas the long run equilibrium condition under pure competition is at P4 and Q4. So price is slightly higher, output is slightly lower, right? Even though normal profit, they are enjoying only normal profit, but there is some degree of productive inefficiency. Yeah, productive inefficiency, because Q3 is produced not at the minimum ATC. Secondly, there is also some degree of allocative inefficiency. Yeah? Allocative efficiency is when price is equal to marginal cost. In this example, P3 is there, marginal cost is below that. Yeah? So P3 is above marginal cost at Q3. So there's some degree of allocative inefficiency. Yeah? So if allocative efficiency is to be achieved, then it should be produced at Q4, where P4 is just equal to the marginal cost. Alright, so we have basically looked at the long run equilibrium condition under monopolistic competition, and we have identified that there are some degree of inefficiency, both productive because output is not produced at the minimum ATC, and allocative inefficiency because P3 is above marginal cost at Q3. However, despite this degree of inefficiency, monopolistic competition also offers some advantage to the customers. Yeah? Because remember, under monopolistic competition, the sellers are selling differentiated goods. Yeah? Competition is still high, and therefore the customers can choose from so many sellers in the market, and on top of that, many of these sellers are selling differentiated goods. Yeah? Even though pure competition, you achieve productive and allocative efficiency, but the goods are all standardized. And you just imagine that all of us are wearing the same shirt, the same shoe, yeah? Using the same handbag, yeah? Because of pure competition. Yeah? If all of these industries are pure competition, all the goods will be standardized, homogeneous, the same, right? So monopolistic competition offers a very important advantage to customers because the sellers are selling differentiated goods. Yeah? Even though there are some degree of inefficiency, but the customers enjoyed significant variety of goods in the market. Okay, now we move to the second market model that we will discuss for today, which is oligopoly. Yeah? Okay, oligopoly market represent an industry where there are only few large firms. Yeah? Few large firms. Contrast this with monopolistic competition that we have just discussed. Monopolistic competition, you have a lot of firms and they are small. Their market share is small. Yeah? Large number of small firms under monopolistic competition. But under oligopoly, few numbers of large firms. Yeah? Large firms, but these firms are very few in the industry. It does not matter whether they produce homogeneous or differentiated products, because the most important feature under oligopoly is the fact that they only have few large firms in the industry, and their ability to control price depends on whether they collude among themselves, where there is a collusion among the oligopoly firms, which will significantly increase their ability to determine price, as if they are operating as a pure monopoly, or if they face severe competition among the rivals, then their ability to determine the price will become significantly lower. Okay, because of the presence of only few large firms in the market, there is one important feature which is called mutual interdependence. Yeah? Mutual interdependence. Mutual interdependence means that the outcome of the firm, let's say the profitability of the firm, will not only depend on its own strategy, but also the strategy or response from others. I can come up with a very interesting strategy to increase my profit, but that is not the only factor that influence my success. The response from my rival will also influence whether my strategy will be working or successful or not. Yeah? So you have mutual interdependence. The dependency in terms of the outcome of the firm as a result of the response by your competitors. Yeah? And then we have high entry barriers. That's why you have only few firms in the market. Yeah? And there is also a possibility where initially the industry is monopolistic competition. Yeah, small firms. Yeah, but then these small firms merge and becomes a large firms. And when there are a lot of mergers taking place, yeah, so you will end up having few large firms dominating the industry. So monopolistic competition can become oligopoly market as a result of mergers of firms. Yeah. Okay, 4 firms concentration ratio is a way how we are able to differentiate between monopolistic competition and oligopoly. Yeah? I have identified this earlier. Okay, so let us use some examples here. Right? Now we know that in an oligopoly market you have few large firms, yeah, and since these firms are large, most of the time the names of these firms are identifiable, recognizable by the customers. Yeah? For example, if we know in an industry, we know who are the major producers, it would be likely that this industry is considered to be an oligopoly industry. Yeah? For example, let's say the fast food industry, everybody can identify, yeah, what were the brands, yeah, in this industry. Yeah? What are the brands in the industry? KFC, McDonald's, Burger King, Pizza Hut. All these are major brands, household brands. Yeah? Or what is the major producers of cars? Everybody knows. Yeah? Pro2, Proton, Honda, Toyota. These are major brands. Yeah? So whenever customers at large recognize the major producers of a particular product in a particular industry, we can already know that this would be likely an oligopoly market. Now, let us try to give some example. Concentration ratio. Concentration ratio. Okay. Now, let us take the automotive industry. Automotive industry. How many cars are sold in a particular year? So on average, there will be 600,000, 600k units of cars sold every year. Every year. So the market share represent the share of a particular producer in relation to the total sales in the industry. For example, who is the largest seller of commercial cars in Malaysia? Number one would be Pro 2. Even though it's perusahaan automobil kedua nasional, but now it's number one. Number one. Maybe it controls from this 600,000, maybe it sells let's say 200,000 cars sold in Malaysia is produced by Pro 2. So how much will be the market share? 200,000 over 600,000. This is 1/3. So 33% of the market share is from Pro 2. Number 2, Proton. How many cars Proton sold every year? Let's say about 180,000. This 180,000 is like 30%. 30%. So the first two company has already controlled 63.3% of the market share in the local automotive industry. So obviously this is an oligopoly market. So an oligopoly market can be identified when the largest four companies, we are using only two here, it has already go beyond 40%, right? But if you use other industry, if the largest four producers or the largest four sellers control more than 40% of the market share, then it will be considered as oligopoly. If the largest four companies only control less than 40% of the market share, and then we consider that to be monopolistic competition. Okay, so that is a simple way how we are able to identify whether a particular industry is monopolistic competition or oligopoly. Okay. Now, despite having only few large firms in the industry, right? Oligopoly firms can also face competition in a different way. In a different way. For example, if we take our aviation industry, we have Malaysia Airlines, AirAsia, Malindo, right? But they also face competition from aviation companies operating outside Malaysia. Outside Malaysia, for example, Singapore Airlines, Singapore Airlines, or Qatar Airways, or Emirates, and any other aviation company that may share similar routes, flight routes, with these local companies. So competition may not necessarily come from local players. It may also come from foreign players. Okay. Competition can also come from inter-industry. Inter-industry. For example, if we talk about transportation, transportation, we can have different types of transportation: air transportation, land transportation, or rail transportation. Even though, for example, in the case of rail transportation, you can have only Kereta Api Tanah Melayu, KTM. But KTM is not only competing within the rail transportation industry, but it is also competing with land transportation industry, yeah, bus companies, yeah, or even air transportation, yeah. Just as our students here, they will look at what are the alternatives for them to travel back home during Hari Raya, yeah. So they will compare the fare from bus tickets, train tickets, as well as flight tickets, yeah. So in this example, it's an inter-industry competition, yeah? Not within the industry, but inter-industry. Okay, and because of the globalization that we are facing here, competition can also come from abroad. Okay? You think you are controlling the local market, but people can buy goods direct from foreign suppliers, through, now we have Shopee, we have Lazada, we have Alibaba, Amazon, yeah. So because of competition, because of globalization, competition can also come from the global market, yeah, through imports, yeah. Okay, so yes, in an oligopoly market we can only have few large firms dominating the industry, but competition for these oligopoly firms can also come from these other sources, yeah? From the global market, from other industries, and so on. Another way how we are able to identify whether an industry is an oligopoly market or not is by using the Herfindahl index. This you can have a look at your textbook and see how the computation is made in order to identify whether the industry is oligopoly or monopolistic competition. Okay. Now, one important feature of oligopoly market is the mutual interdependence. As I said earlier, the profitability of a firm will not only depend on its own strategy, but how their rival respond to their strategy. Yeah? Let us use this game theory approach to understand mutual interdependence. Let's say we have two companies, yeah, selling sports equipments. We have Rare Air and also Uptown. These are two rivals in the market, two largest firms in the oligopoly market. And then let us see in terms of their pricing strategy. Yeah? Rare Air can use either a high price strategy or a low price strategy. Similarly, Uptown can use a high price strategy or a low price strategy. Their strategy alone will not determine their profits. Yeah, we need to also look at the response of their rivals. For example, if let's say Rare Air use a high price strategy, yeah, Rare Air use a high price strategy, but Uptown use a low price strategy. Okay, so these figures represent the profits going to Rare Air and the profits going to Uptown. In this example, if Rare Air choose a high price strategy and Uptown choose a low price strategy, then Rare Air will get only 8 and Uptown will get 15. Okay? If Rare Air choose a high price strategy and Uptown also use a high price strategy, then Rare Air will get 12, Uptown will also get 12. Okay? Similarly, if Rare Air choose a low price strategy, then the profits to Rare Air depends on what would be the strategy by Uptown. If Rare Air choose a low price strategy and Uptown choose a high price strategy, then Rare Air will get 15 and Uptown will get 6. If Rare Air choose a low price strategy and Uptown also choose a low price strategy, then Rare Air will get 8 and Uptown will get 8. Now the question is, okay, similarly, the profits to Uptown will also depends on the response by Red Air. If Uptown choose a high price strategy and Red Air also choose a high price strategy, then Uptown will get 12, Red Air will get 12. If Uptown choose a high price strategy but Red Air choose a low price strategy, then Uptown will get only 6, whereas Red Air will get 15. If Uptown choose a low price strategy, then the profits to Uptown depends on the response by Red Air. If Uptown choose a low price strategy and Red Air choose a high price strategy, then Uptown will get 15 and Red Air will get only 6. But if Uptown choose a low price strategy and Red Air also choose a low price strategy, then Uptown will get 8 and Red Air will get 8. So which of the strategy that the firms will choose? Yeah. Now the highest profit is when any of the firm choose a low price strategy while the other firm is charging high price strategy. For example, if we look at it from the perspective of Red Air, then the highest profit for Red Air would be 15 here. This is where Red Air charge a low price strategy, but Uptown charge a high price strategy. So 15 would be the highest profit, and probably Red Air will choose a low price strategy, hoping that Uptown will choose a high price strategy, and therefore Red Air will get all the customers from Uptown and maximize profit at 15. If we look at it from the perspective of Uptown here, the highest profit to Uptown will also be using a low price strategy, hoping that Red Air will choose a high price strategy. Yeah. So Uptown will also be hopeful that when they introduce a low price strategy, Red Air will have a high price strategy, so that Uptown will get all the customers from Red Air. Okay. So when both of them act independently, of each other, both of them will decide on a low price strategy. Yeah. So Red Air hope to have a low price strategy and hoping that Uptown will have a high price strategy to maximize profit. Uptown will also expect the same. So both of them will end up having low price strategy. What will happen? Both of them will end up having 8 as profits. Yeah? Red Air 8, Uptown is also 8. But 8 is not the highest profit, right? 8 is not the highest, 8 is not a good profit as compared to other options. Yeah. So when they compete and charge low price strategy, both of them will have lower profits, right? So of course they can increase profits. For example, by not competing, this is what we call collusion. Yeah? Collusion. So Red Air and Uptown may decide and discuss that when they compete, they will have low profits. Why not? If they agree to both of them to charge high price. So if both of them agree to charge high price, in other words, they stop competing, now they are colluding, yeah, by setting high price, then both of them will get 12. Okay, so that's why in an oligopoly market, there can be tendencies for the firms to collude in order to maximize profit. Just like what I have mentioned earlier, the smart partnership between AirAsia and Malaysia Airlines was the first case investigated by the Malaysian Competition Commission, yeah? Malaysian Competition Commission, because after the smart partnership agreement was signed between Malaysia Airlines and AirAsia, there was a significant reduction in competition between these two companies. Yeah? So this is an example of collusion activities. Yeah? Of course, this one is much clearer, yeah? Because both of them agreed to increase the price. When both of them agreed to increase the price, then the customer doesn't have any other choice. Yeah? If one of them increase the price, the other one doesn't then they can switch to the one that is charging lower price. But if both of them agree to put high price, then customers cannot go anywhere. Yeah, so the customers will have to pay high price to any of the two firms. Okay. However, this 12 and 12 of profits for the two firms is not actually the highest profit. The highest profit will be 15, right? Right? So whenever firms are engaging in collusive behavior, in a collusive contract, agreement, there is also a possibility or a tendency for firms to cheat the agreement. So now let's say Rare Air and Uptown has agreed to charge high price. One day Rare Air manager says that why I should only have 12 whereas I can have 15. So this is when Rare Air cheated Uptown and reduced the price. Uptown is currently charging high price, Rare Air is also charging high price, but if Rare Air reduce the price, Rare Air will get 15 and Uptown will only get 6. So that is also a challenge for companies in a collusive agreement to keep the agreement for quite some time, because there is tendency for firms to cheat the agreement to increase their profit. Okay, so we have discussed mutual interdependence in terms of the game theory, right? Collusion enable the firms to increase profit, but it creates incentive for firms to cheat because that will further increase their profit. Okay, prisoner's dilemma is a classic example of a game theory. So if you are interested to know how the prisoner's dilemma is applicable in our discussion today, please Google it and then have a read on prisoner's dilemma. Okay, because of the mutual interdependence between the firms in an oligopoly market, there can be two possibilities. One, firms are engaging in competition, and number two, firms are engaging in collusion, as we have seen earlier. So because of these possibilities, the equilibrium under oligopoly market cannot be explained by only one theory. So we need to look at several theories based on the nature of the interaction between the firms. The King demand curve is the first model to explain how firms can achieve equilibrium in the long run under the assumption that the firms are acting independently. They are competing among themselves and they are acting independently. The second one, collusive pricing, is the model that tries to explain how equilibrium can be achieved in the long run when the firms in an oligopoly market collude. So the first one they compete, the second one they collude. The third one is some hybrid of the two. Price leadership is not outright collusion, but it is also not outright competition. There are some elements of cooperation in the price leadership model. Okay, let's look at the first model, the King demand model. So the King demand model is non-collusive model. Non-collusive model means that the firms are competing among themselves. There is no collusion. Okay. Firms can either match price changes or ignore price changes. Right? For example, let's say we have firm A and firm B. Firm A and firm B. What will be the reaction of firm B if firm A make changes to its pricing strategy? Okay, let's say I am firm A. If I reduce my price, what would be your response? Should you reduce the price or you should not reduce your price? Okay, so there are two two possibilities. One, you ignore my price changes. The second one, you match. You match means you follow or you react to my price changes. The impact would be shown by the demand curve. Yeah? Let's say this is quantity okay, quantity, price. Let's say this is the demand curve for my product, yeah, for product A, yeah, by company A. Okay, the first possibility is when you ignore. Okay, I can either increase my price or reduce my price. If I increase my price and you ignore, what will happen? My price will be higher than your price, yeah, and as a result, I will lose a lot of customers. Customers will run away, yeah, from me and going to you, yeah. So sales will drop significantly if I increase the price and you ignore. What happens if I reduce my price and you ignore? If I reduce my price and you ignore, you don't make any changes to your price, then I will capture a lot of your customers. So my sales will significantly increase. Yeah. So under the assumption that you ignore my price changes, yeah, let's say you are company B, yeah, firm B. If firm A make changes to the price, increase or reduce the price, and firm B ignores these price changes, then demand for firm A will be highly elastic. Yeah? Highly elastic. Because if the firm increase the price, then there will be significant fall in sales. If the firm reduce the price, there will be significant increase in sales, because you ignore. Yeah? Firm B ignores. The second possibility is when firm B match the price changes. Quantity, price, demand for firm A. Yeah? You match. In this example, if I increase my price, you will also increase your price. So what will happen to my sales? My sales will not drop that significantly, yeah, because you also increase your price. So I will not be losing a lot of my customers to you, because you are also increasing your price. Yeah. So if you match my price increase, my sales will not drop that much. Yeah. It will still drop because of the purchasing power of our customers will be lower because of the higher price, but not because the customers run to another competitor. If I reduce my price and you also reduce your price, what will happen? My sales will not also increase that much, because even though I'm reducing my price, you are also reducing your price, right? So I will not be able to capture your market share or to capture your customers. Yeah. So if you have the strategy of matching my price changes, then demand will be elastic. This is the demand for firm A when the competitor ignore price changes. This is the demand for firm B, A when the competitor match price changes. Okay. However, in reality, firms will not ignore or match regardless of the movement of the price. Yeah, it depends. Yeah, it depends. For example, if I increase my price, will you ignore or will you match? If I increase my price, most probably you will ignore, because if I increase my price without having to make changes to your price, your product is currently cheaper than mine. Yeah, relatively cheaper. So you will be able to capture my customers. Yeah? My customers will be running from me and going to you. Yeah? So most probably, if I increase my price, you will ignore. So this one is applicable. But what if I reduce my price? Will you ignore or will you match? If I reduce my price and you ignore, you will lose a lot of customers. Yeah. So most probably, if I reduce my price, you will match. So the demand curve for me will be like this. Yeah. So at one point, it will be very elastic if I increase the price. But if I reduce the price, it will be highly inelastic. When we combine these two, yeah, your response to my changes in the price are not the same. Yeah. So you will ignore when I increase the price, but you will match when I reduce the price. So we call this a combined strategy by the rival. Yeah? A combined strategy by the rival. So what will happen? We will have this diagram, kink demand diagram. Yeah? Let's say the price is at PO here. If I increase the price above PO, then you will ignore. That's why the demand curve here is very elastic. Yeah, very elastic. But if I reduce the price below P0, you will match. Therefore, the demand curve here will be inelastic. Yeah, so the demand curve is kink or banded. Yeah, very sharply at P0 here, banded. Yeah, okay. Now remember that marginal revenue follows the demand curve. Yeah, so MR2 here follows D2. Yeah, okay. So when the demand curve banded, yeah, kink here, then MR1 here follows D1. So you have not only a kink demand, but a weird looking marginal revenue. Yeah? Marginal revenue where there is a gap, vertical gap between MR2 here and MR1. MR2 follows D2, MR1 follows D1. So you have a vertical gap there. Okay. Now, why is that the kink demand model able to explain the long run equilibrium under oligopoly? Okay. Number one, at P0, the firms doesn't have any incentive to make changes to the price. If the firm increase the price P0 upward, then sales will significantly drop because the competitors ignore these price changes. Yeah, so because demand curve is elastic, then you know if demand curve is elastic, D2 is elastic demand. If you increase price, what happens to total revenue? Total revenue will fall. If you want to reduce the price from P0 downward, your competitor will follow, right? So therefore demand is very inelastic. So when demand is inelastic, when you reduce the price, total revenue will fall, right? So because of this, whether you increase the price above P0 or you reduce the price below P0, your total revenue will decline. Therefore, this will keep you operating at P0 and Q0. Yeah, so that is one explanation why the kink demand model able to explain why the oligopoly firms will be in equilibrium at this position P0 and Q0. Secondly, it can also be explained by looking at the cost. Yeah, remember all firms will produce where MR equals MC. Now, given that we have a vertical gap, yeah, of the marginal revenue curve, yeah, MR2 is relatively more elastic, following D2, and suddenly we have MR1. Yeah, so there's a vertical gap there. And when firms wants to produce, they will produce at the point where MR equal MC. Yeah. So since there is a vertical gap in the marginal revenue curve, so even if the marginal cost curve fluctuates, yeah, there is a change in marginal cost curve. As long as the shift of the marginal cost curve is within that vertical gap, within MC1 and MC2, yeah, so there is a shift between this shift of marginal cost curve between MC1 and MC2, but still the output will be at Q0, because of the presence of the vertical gap. Only if the marginal cost shift beyond MC1 or beyond MC2, then only there will be a change in the output level. But as long as marginal cost shift within MC1 and MC2, which is within the vertical gap, the point where MR equal MR equal MC will still be at Q0. So this is the reason why the King demand model is able to explain how the firms will be in equilibrium in the long run. So there's no incentive for the firms to make changes in their output and price level. They will continue to produce Q0 and charge at P0. However, there are some important criticisms of the King demand model. Okay, so when you are at P0, yes, there is no incentive for you to increase the price above P0 or reduce the price below P0 and produce other than at Q0. But the model only explain at the point of P0 what will happen, but did not explain how you come to P0 in the first place. So the model says that if you are at P0, then there's no incentive for you to increase the price or reduce the price, because in both cases total revenue will fall. So better you continue to produce at P0 and Q0. But the model doesn't explain how you reach P0 in the first place. It is assumed that if you are at P0, then there is no incentive for you to change your price and output combination. But it doesn't explain how you get to P0 and Q0 in the first place. It explains inflexibility. It means that when you are at certain point, then there is no incentive for you to increase or reduce. But it doesn't explain how you get to that point. And secondly, price is not as rigid. We see that oligopoly firms always change their pricing. So there exists price flexibility among the oligopoly firms. But normally oligopoly firms will not compete using price, because I mentioned earlier that competing using price may trigger price wars. And firms doesn't like price wars because that will reduce their profits. They prefer to compete using non-price factors. Okay, the second model is the collusive model. Okay, cartel is an example of an agreement among the firms to enter into a collusion. Most of the cases, cartel is illegal. Collusion is illegal within countries. But there are some examples of collusion. OPEC, Organization for Petroleum Exporting Countries. That is an example of a collusion. You have 12 countries, the exporter of petroleum, come together, agree to produce in certain amount. They agree to limit supply in order to control the price. So this is an example of cartel. Okay, in this case, if you have, for example, three firms, three oligopolies in the market, each of them will produce where MR equal MC, and produce at Q0 and will charge at P0. So this will be the output and price combination that will maximize the firm's profit. This is under the assumptions that all the firms have the same cost and all the firms are having the same size. So demand for all the firms are the same, cost for all the firms are the same. And when this happens, then all the firms will be able to maximize profit where MR equal MC and charge the price at P0. and they are basically sharing the profit as if they are a monopoly. If we have 3 firms here, all the 3 firms will charge P0, and the total output of the industry will be Q0 times 3, because there are 3 companies. We are just giving example here. If there are 3 companies, then everybody will charge P0, but the total output will be Q0 times 3 companies that are producing. Okay? But the challenge is, what if the size of the firms are not the same? What if the size of the firm are not the same? So if the size of the firm are not the same, then the demand will not be the same. So company A here will have this demand curve, but company may have higher demand curve because their market share is higher. And if their cost is the same, if their costs are not the same, then the marginal revenue and marginal cost will not be like this. Firm B can have higher marginal cost or lower marginal cost. So the point where MR equal MC will not necessarily be the same, and when you locate to the demand curve, the price may not be the same as well. So collusion can be challenging if there are significant difference in terms of demand and significant difference in terms of cost of production, because if you have differences in demand and differences in cost, then let's say P0 and Q0 may be the price and output combination for this firm, but for other firms, the profit maximization price may not be P0. They may want it to be higher, and their output may not be at Q0 as well. This is the example of OPEC, Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, where you have a number of countries agreeing to limit their output based on the amount of oil reserve that they have. For example, Saudi Arabia having the largest oil reserve, they will produce the largest in this organization. Okay, collusion can be covert or can be overt. Covert here means in secret. The reason why collusion can be done in secret, because collusion is most of the time illegal. So collusion result in the reduction in competition. Firms agree not to compete and set high price. This is normally illegal in many countries. That's why many firms do it secretly. We call it covert collusion. Covert collusion involves tacit understanding. Tacit understanding means there's no formal agreement. It's just understanding between the competitors not to compete and therefore increase the price to increase their profits. Okay, obstacles to collusion. This is what I have mentioned earlier. There can be demand and cost differences between the different firms, which makes determination of output and price for the different firms to be different and therefore not able to agree. Number of firms. The larger the number of firms, the more difficult to collude. So if you have only 3-4 companies or 5 companies, easier to get the agreement of everybody to collude, to agree not to compete. But if you have significantly higher numbers, 10, 12, 15, it's not easy to get the agreement of everyone. Cheating. Remember that even when you are successfully engaged in a contract or agreement to set high price, there is always the tendency of cheating, because if everybody is setting high price, if you set low price, you are able to capture the customers of your rivals and you control the market. And finally, and also recession. During economic recession, what happened? Overall demand will go down. So when overall market demand goes down, everybody try to struggle for themselves. Then normally they will start to compete and trying to preserve their own economic profit. Potential entry, let's say you already have 5 firms in the industry agreeing to collude. Suddenly there is 1 or 2 other firms entering the industry. Since they are not part of the collusive agreement, they can benefit by charging a low price and therefore capturing the market share, capturing all the customers of the existing firms. So potential entry will disrupt the existing agreement among oligopoly firms. And legal obstacle, the obvious challenge to collusive agreement is the fact that this kind of agreement is illegal. The last model to explain how firms in the oligopoly market can reach equilibrium is the price leadership model. The price leadership model is a hybrid model. Yeah, there's some elements of cooperation, there's also some elements of competition. In order for this price leadership model to create a stable or equilibrium condition in the market, you need to have a leader. In an industry, you need to have a leader. Normally, the leader will be the largest firm in the industry. Yeah. So the leader will decide the first move, and all the other competitors will follow suit. Yeah. So this is like a collusive agreement, but it is done informally. Yeah, informally. Let's say Pro2 is the leader in the market because it controls, assuming Pro2 is the leader in the market because it controls the largest market share. So whenever Pro2 cuts the price because the government reduce the sales tax on cars, so Pro2 announced that they will cut a certain percentage of their car prices. So that basically gave a signal to the industry. So other firms will also follow. Yeah, other firms will also follow by cutting down their price as well. It can also be the opposite direction. Yeah? So Pro2, let's say because of higher costs, due to higher costs or short of supply, may increase the price of the car and then make the announcement. So other competitors will follow because everybody tends to follow the leader. And when everybody follows, then there must be a period where everybody is not making any move. If changes are done quite frequently, then it will send a wrong signal. Let's say Pro2 cuts the price because the government reduced the sales tax on cars, and then all the other competitors follow cutting down the price. Suddenly Pro2 cuts down further the price. So others will be questioning, is Pro2 is trying to use price to compete, and this will trigger a price war. Yeah? So because of that, there should be infrequent price changes, and the dominant firm should lead and communicate well what is the reason behind the changes in the price, so that others can use the same reason, can result in the risk of a price war, which is something that all firms would like to avoid. Right? Advertisement can serve as information to consumers. This is in relation to informative advertisement, but many advertisements can also manipulate the consumers in a way that trying to influence them to buy the product, even though the consumers may not necessarily need those products. Yeah? Sometimes you feel that your life is okay. Suddenly you come across an advertisement, oh, my life will not be complete if I don't buy that product. So this is a kind of manipulation that experts in advertisement can do, creating the feeling that you need to buy the product in order for you to be happy and so on. Okay, you can see that how much oligopoly firms spend on advertising, in the billions, in the billions. They really spend on advertisements because it really generates brand loyalty and also maintain demand for their products. Okay, finally, oligopoly and efficiency. Okay, not productively efficient because we have seen earlier that in the case where firms are engaging in collusion, we can see earlier whenever firms are engaging in collusion, a collusive model of oligopoly, firms will behave as if they are pure monopoly. Even when they are competing in the king demand model, for example, where firms are acting independently and competing with each other, the output is not produced at the lowest minimum ATC, and also price is above marginal cost. So there are significant degree of productive as well as allocative inefficiency under oligopoly. Okay, so this completes our discussion of all the 4 market models. We have discussed pure competition, after that pure monopoly. Today we have managed to cover the 2 most important market structure that basically represent the actual markets in the economy, which is monopolistic competition and oligopoly. So if you have any questions, please send a message to our group, and also good luck for your final assessment. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.